How can you encourage people to vote Labour when the current economy needs clear signals to get back on track?
The climate economy, or did you say the climate economy or the current economy?
Current economy.
Look, the single most important thing we can do is we need to make sure that we grow the economy. Because what the Chancellor did last week, or the week before, was basically gave away every single spare penny he had for some tax cuts, which means that there's going to be no money for public services whatsoever. I think if you're going to grow the economy, I'm the Shadow Minister for Creative Industries, for instance. I think we need to, the creative industries have grown faster than any other part of the economy over the last few years. We need to grow them, and people like yourselves need to be thinking, maybe there's a career for me in the creative industries, because the industries of the past are not going to be the industries of the future. It's a perfectly fair thing to say that we are not as clear now as we will need to be when there is a general election. I mean, that's because we don't know when the general election will be. And if we published all our plans today, the Tories would nick the good things and criticise the things that they didn't like. So that's why we won't lay out all of our plans until there is a general election. But, you know, the single most important thing I think we could do is we could bring back decency and competence into public life. It's not a bad start.
Thank you.
Cheers.
It's well known that the Conservative Party want to overturn the Human Rights Act and replace it with a British Bill of Rights. What are Labour doing to avoid this?
Well, the Tories say an awful lot of things and never do them. And this is yet another instance. They keep on saying they're going to replace the Human Rights Act, but then it never happens. And I don't think they will. Interestingly enough, we've got a very complicated piece of legislation going through this afternoon, which basically presumes that the UK will be staying in the European Convention on Human Rights. There are only two countries who've left the ECHR, Russia and Belarus, and I don't want to follow their direction of travel. Look, the truth of the matter is that the Tory party is completely and utterly split at the moment. You've got a whole load of lunatics and headbangers at one end of the Conservative Party. I think you've got Jacob Rees-Mogg later, haven't you? Well, there you go. I'm tempted to say something about his eating habits, but actually, on I'm a Celebrity, is there a way of saying to keep them in? Just vote, if the whole of the country voted to keep him in Australia in a jungle, endlessly eating kangaroo anus or something. Maybe that, anyway, so sorry, serious question. We will not be leaving the European Convention on Human Rights if there's a Labour government. We will fight it all the way, but I don't think the Tories will do it because they're just too split. One of the reasons, incidentally, why I think we need a general election now rather than wait for another year is because it's just an endless cycle of madness in Downing Street.
Do you believe that the current government is doing enough to protect our personal freedoms, and would a British Bill of Rights help this?
No and no. Politicians get accused of giving long-winded answers, so I'm tempted just to stick with that. But look, a lot of our rights are enshrined in the Human Rights Act, which we brought in under a Labour government in 1998. And it was very important when we did it in 1998 because before that, if you wanted to challenge the government over whether your human rights had been abused, for instance, your right to freedom of expression or your right to privacy, your right to family life and so on, you had to go to the European Court of Human Rights to prosecute your case. And when we brought that into UK law in the Human Rights Act, we made it possible for you to prosecute that case in a British court. And that's what I think is important. But look, I'm an internationalist. I'm not just a nationalist. I care as much about children in Gaza as I care about children in the Rwanda in my patch. And I want to make sure that everybody is able to enjoy the fullness of their human rights, which is why I believe in the international human rights order. I think one of the terrible mistakes that Farage and Johnson and Rees-Mogg and all that lot have effectively enforced on the UK is that our international standing around the world has been diminished. People just think we're a joke, a laughing stock. And on top of that, we've undermined the international rule of law. And that is problematic for us because we've always relied on it ourselves.